And welcome to our first official NaNoWriMo live stream. It's incredible, but we've gotten through Preptober, and now we are in the end game. Shameless Marvel pun. I am joined today by my wonderful colleagues, our product development specialist Mackenzie Finkley, and our social media manager Emily Vanderbed. How are we doing, girls? Who's ready for NaNoWriMo and who is panicking? Be honest.
Maybe a
November
little.
is here. Oh, it's both. It's a nervited, as Professor Custer would say. Nervous, excited.
Nervited, right. Emily, very much the same?
Oh yeah, a little bit of both.
A little bit of both. Wonderful. Oh, and we are joined by... No, actually, we're not. I'm sorry. I thought Akira was here for some reason. I thought I saw her pop in for a second. Anyway, ignore that. So, 50K words, 50,000 words, 50K.
Mhm.
The number sounds very scary, but actually isn't, right? And Manuscripts is here to help you all through it, whoever participates. We will be doing one 15-minute sprint, writing sprint today. Read out loud our excerpts so that you can get comfortable. Even people who do writing for a living are not above writing a garbage first draft, and it's the getting through it part that really counts. So that's what we're here for.
Here.
Yes, but before that, I am honored to bring out our first guest for the month of November, romance novelist and NaNoWriMo participant, the wonderful, the beautiful Shonda Ramsey, everybody. Hello.
Hi, Shonda.
Hey, girl. How are you?
I'm great. How are you all doing today?
We are doing great, especially now that you are here with us. So, your name, it is remarkable how similar it is to Shonda Rhimes. I mean, if anyone was destined for greatness with such a name, it would be you. So,
Right.
my first question is, when will you drop the announcement about Channel and 2.0? Confess.
I am not sure, but it is so funny that you say that because I hear that a lot.
I am
It's
leaning
great.
into the popular opinion here. I'm trying
It
to...
is great. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
And people
absolutely.
do ask me why I've waited so long to get back into writing.
You have
I
the
don't have
name
an
for it.
answer.
Yeah, you do you. Get your break, girl.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, Shonda, you are a romance writer.
Yes.
All of us here, big fans of romance, at least the writing kind of romance in my case. And romance novels can get notoriously long. It's kind of a genre expectation. And we do have a controversial idea to present you with, and you can either refute or confirm. When you write during with Nano, whatever, time crunch, stress, life,
Mhm.
all of that in mind, writing goals, yay or nay? Good idea or bad idea to set a daily writing goal?
Well, you are talking to a planner girl.
Right.
Yes.
So I kind of have a love-hate relationship with goals because
Mhm.
they are such a big part of my life.
Mhm.
And I like to set goals for myself that are attainable first, but then I push my boundaries as my kind of like second lofty goal so that
Oh.
I can really push myself. But then when I do it that way, it's so that if I don't hit it, I'm not really mad at myself for not hitting it because I at least hit that first goal that I know is attainable. But that doesn't stop me from really trying hard to hit that big goal.
Yeah, and I think that's a really what I hear is a lot of kindness, that you have a lot of kindness for yourself, which is
Mhm.
amazing because
Yes.
writers are notoriously hard on themselves for some reason. I mean,
Mhm.
it's good sometimes, but I don't think it's very productive during NaNoWriMo. Would you agree?
I would say yes, because this is my first NaNoWriMo, so I'm getting all the things thrown at me at once.
Yeah.
And it is so overwhelming. And not having done this before, I've like watched every YouTube video I could find on the subject, and
Right.
everybody does it differently. And I think the big key for me was finding my own path on this journey that made sense because it's so easy to get stressed out with the numbers, hitting those numbers.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Speaking of hitting those numbers, Mackenzie, this is a great pivot into your question.
Yes, that is my question. So, how? Like, I've been seeing all these TikTokers starting to put things about Nano, right? And they're like, come with me to write 9,000 words today. And you're like, I just watched
Yeah.
someone today. They're
How?
like, I just wrote 50,000 words in 6 days because I can. And I'm like, do we not have a full-time job? Like, are we a full-time writer? Are we that lucky? Like, how did you do it? Right. So my question to you, Shonda, is how do you pace yourself to reach 50,000 words in, a month's time without negatively influencing the quality of your writing? Because that's one of the things I do wonder about these people who can sit down and crank out 9,000 words in a day. I'm like, are we repeating the same word 9,000 times? Or do we have
Right.
a real winner on our hands?
Right. So that's a very big concern that I have for myself because I'm not one to push that hard to crank out just filler words, right? So I have just set times during each day that I know I can work into my schedule because I do work. I have a business that I run. And
Right.
so that comes first, and I work writing in when I can. And if that's getting up an hour earlier so that I can have an hour of quiet time to just write, then I do. But like today, I only got 500 words in. That's not my goal.
And
So
that
I
and
have
that's
to.
okay.
I have to
Yeah.
do it again this afternoon or this evening, until I can try to hit that goal each day. So it's for me, I want to make sure that I'm hitting quality over the quantity first and foremost, especially with it being my first time. If I hit the 50,000, that's great. But at the end of this, I really want a great novel that I can stand behind and be proud of.
Yeah, and I think the quality is very important. Obviously, Nano has a time crunch for its own reasons, and it's to hold you accountable, but it's not to bully you, if that makes sense. And
Yes.
I'm not sure that people make that distinction that, this is to help you to not procrastinate. It's not here to make you feel bad about yourself, but I'm really glad that you made that distinction for all of us. So, okay, tell us, because I actually read something something about your novel, but tell all of us who don't know what you're working on this NaNoWriMo.
Yeah, so I am working on a novel that has to do with a girl who is down on her luck, and she is going to go through a journey. I hate to say this, but I'm being kind of mean to her, just a little bit. But I I am somebody who's very realistic, and life is not always rainbows and sunshines, and so I want the reader to be able to resonate with the struggles that she's going to go through. And I want them to kind of feel that emotion that she's going to come out. And it all revolves around kind of a second chance love. There is a rock star involved because why not? It's a romance book. We got to have a rock star, right? Like, and then just to throw in a little bit extra, he's a single dad. I mean, come on. What's not to love about that?
Oh yes,
Right.
I'm already. Oh yeah. Oh my God, I'm already warm. Warm. A lot of warm is going on around here. Yes, absolutely.
Beautiful.
So, I really appreciate it. So is it? I really appreciate your straightforwardness and you're really forthright in your writing. Like that's what really comes through. And so is it a coming of age story or not really? Is it about a person who finds herself rather than
so she's actually divorced. So it's a second chance. She's an adult. They're all adults. And I did that just because I feel like that's kind of missing. I'm not really a YA author, and I kind of write what I like to read. So
more like new adult, right?
Yeah, I would say new adult. Yeah, because they're in their 30s, so they are a little bit younger. But I still think it's going to be great.
Yeah,
I might be biased,
absolutely. And this is actually a great segue into my next question, and that is basically we all write from experiences, and the separation of art and real life and all of that, and how much of yourself you should or shouldn't insert into your writing. So my question for you is exactly that: how much of yourself do you insert, and how much of yourself would you advise in general to insert into your writing? Like, when is that boundary when you would like, maybe this is where the limit is?
I think for me personally, I know it's different for everybody else, and I have friends who also write, so we all kind of do this a little differently.
Yeah.
But for me personally, this actual idea was a dream I had. So
No.
Love it.
it started there. I woke up in the middle of the night, and the first thing I did was write down as much detail as I could possibly remember from that dream. And
yeah.
I just remember sitting there thinking this would make a really good book, but it wasn't enough to go on. It was just enough to get started and to kind of know the characters a little bit.
Mhm.
And so for me, that's where I'm coming from. It's not necessarily my personal experiences. It's more what I dreamt about. And what I do within my writing is I hide Easter eggs in there that people aren't going to really know unless they know me, that it
Yeah.
might be something, it could be an object or something that's in there, a name. A lot of the names that I picked actually have meaning, town names, people names, things like
Okay.
that. So
What's
that's
your
how I do it.
strategy? What's your strategy? Do you obfuscate? Because when we pull from real life experiences and people ask you about it, like you are very honest. So be honest
Yes.
with me. Like, do you lie to people and be like, no, it's not you. No, it's not about you.
I think if the person knows me, they're going to know. I cannot lie. It is the funniest thing. You see it. My face gets so red. Like I
Yeah.
am the most fair complected person I think I know. And my cheeks will just creep red all the way up. So I can't hide it. So they're going to know. So I have to be honest with them. If they ask, and if it is, then absolutely I'm going to tell them. But I
Honesty.
try not to do anything that's going to be incriminating or detrimental to relationships. So.
Not harmful, but honest for sure. Yeah, honesty is the best policy, And when you write a book, I feel like you've earned that, right? You know what I mean? Like people do not know how much we go through during our writing and how cathartic it is. So you've definitely earned it. Like, you know what I mean? Like when people call you out on it, you're just like, yes, it's about you. Do you have a problem with that?
I'm thinking if you have to ask if it's about you, then you know it's about
Yeah,
you.
you know the answer.
Yeah,
If you find
absolutely.
pause, you're like, wait a minute.
If you recognize yourself in that, then there's a certain amount of accountability that you have to, or you should, or you know what I mean? Like you have.
But by the way, all depictions are fictional and completely coincidental. None
Yeah.
of these are based on real people at all. No, no,
That's
no.
correct.
Disclaimer. Oh, I love.
Absolutely not.
I love disclaimers. Oh my god. Well, before we go into the next question, any follow-up questions to this?
I actually do.
Go ahead, Emily.
I'm curious because you were talking earlier about how like you're putting your main character through a lot, which I think we all do as writers. But something that I've noticed with
projecting much.
something that I've noticed with really a lot of novels, but particularly like some fantasy and then a lot of romance too, is I'm sure we've all like read novels or watched shows where like it's just tragedy after tragedy and they kill a character and then like the bus explodes or like how do you sort of like find that balance so that it's not it's not overwhelming for your characters and for your readers, but that you're still sort of giving us those tension points and giving us those things that your characters can have sort of those internal struggles with?
That's a really good question.
That
a light
is
at the end of the tunnel, basically.
It's a good one.
How do you give hope? Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of set the stage a little bit so that you can see the journey they're about to go on, and you'll see kind of the pushback the characters are going to give at the challenges that are coming their way. And a lot of these are very common problems that happen to everyday people. So it's not going to be anything that's so severe that it's going to make you like stop and think, oh my gosh. But it's going to be enough of a trial that you're going to see the growth in that character as they journey on.
More like this girl cannot catch a break.
Yes, like that.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
there are some hard topics because I'm the queen of hard topics. So there is miscarriage involved in the book. There is like a reflection point on that, which is a very hard topic to even go through and a very hard thing to go through.
Mhm.
And so I think that's probably the hardest thing that is going to be in this particular book that I'm writing, is that.
Right, right. And I do have a follow-up question because you bring up an interesting point. How do you reconcile that with the genre expectation? Emily touched on it a little bit. Like, how do you give hope? But like, let's use me as an example. I write read realism, but I can sort of support that with the genre. You know, when people hear literary fiction, they expect Hemingway and they expect a lot of toxicity. That's what they expect. But when you hear romance, you know, like, you expect an arc, but they like what pops up in people's heads, in their minds, is mostly maybe Hallmark and that sort of thing, you know, just very a lot of fluffiness. So, and I do think that hard topics like that have a place in the romance genre. It's just depends on how it's done. And I'm just curious about your opinion on this. How do you reconcile that?
I mean,
It
look
is
at Colleen
controversy.
Hoover.
For sure, controversy, but I chose that for a reason.
Yeah.
And I knew that this was going to come up as I go too, because a lot of people probably are expecting the sunshine and rainbows and the happy ever after. And I do promise they will all work out in the end. There is going to be a happy ever after at the end of every book.
You promise a payoff at the end.
Yes. Yeah. There's always, but it's going to be a realistic happy ever after, and it's not going to be a prince, and it's not going to be, not that there's anything wrong with that, but for me particularly, I went through in my own life such a hardship going through life, and I felt like there was nothing that I could relate to when going through that. And I'll be honest with you, I would get so mad sometimes at some of the same old endings, right? So I decided if I picked up that pen again, I was going to write, but I was going to write realistic and from the heart. And so that's something that I want to make sure that I hold true to and get out, because I feel like so many people, they suffer in silence. They don't talk, they don't come out. And I want to create an escape for people like me who have gone through these hardships that can relate and still have that hope. There's that hope that they need. And I'm hoping that I can show that hope in the end.
I'd love to dig into this a little bit more. I'm wondering, Shonda, what does a realistic ending look like to you? And if that is perhaps too difficult a question, maybe like, what does an unrealistic ending typically look like?
Paint a picture.
For me, I think that I don't always get my happy ending, right? So life isn't always going to just hand it to me on a silver platter. But if I look back at the journey that I went through to get to where I am today, life actually is pretty happy. And it's all about perspective. It's all about perspective.
That is so sweet. That was so hopeful. And we actually touched upon something similar. I think it was either with Rachel. I think about realistic and unrealistic endings, and I really appreciate you for voicing out that there are certain things that just cannot be never talked about. You know what I mean? And basically, what I remember Rachel saying is that traditional publishers often do not go for a certain genre or certain kind of books because they think that they cannot sell it. Basically, even if they read it and they're like, this is really good manuscript, but it's unmarketable. And Rachel Bateman, one of the writers that we had on the live stream, said that look at indie writers and what they are writing, and you will know it's going to be popular in 4 years because the traditional publishers are going to pick up on that. Essentially, because indie writers write what they can see, what they are not what they don't see as like either they don't see representation or they don't see representation that is accurate. And that's why they write these stories. And so thank you for reaffirming that. we really want to hear it.
I know it seems controversial, and I know that, and I know that it's going to be a pretty tough road for me going forward, but I firmly believe that this is what I'm supposed to do. And it took me several years of fighting that, before I got to the point of acceptance and just moving ahead.
Listen, controversial. It's such a strange word to me. Is it bad? It used to be controversial for women to wear pants.
Mm-hmm.
Perspective, like you said, you know what I mean? So it's not necessarily, I don't think it's bad, but it's just my opinion. The word controversial, I don't think it's necessarily bad. But yeah, I really appreciate you for voicing that out. All right, Emily, go ahead. Your question.
So my question is, does participating in NaNoWriMo influence your writing style? And if it does, in what ways?
I'm going to say yes, it did. But that's because I am coming off of not picking up that pen because I've been so scared to do it that NaNoWriMo is what kind of launched me into this again. And I'm finding my own voice and I'm finding my own way to do things, but because of NaNoWriMo. I had never heard of NaNoWriMo until like 2 years ago, I think it was. I found a YouTube that was on the topic. I have a friend that we were going through, the pandemic, and it was a hard time, and we could only see each other on Zoom, and it was a very lonely time for all of us.
Yeah.
And so I challenged her actually to start writing because she's great. And then she challenged me because she knew that I used to write as well. And I wasn't expecting that, but I owe that to her. She got me back into it. And so then I started just searching on YouTube and found videos on NaNoWriMo. And that's what got me kind of going down that rabbit hole of learning. And so last year I really wanted to do it, but it wasn't my time. So I didn't do it. And then this year I decided October, I'm doing this. So right before.
No,
So it's been kind of a lot to try to get ready in a short time, but it's been great.
No, that is absolutely amazing. And thank you for emphasizing what's so great about NaNoWriMo and why we choose to support it. Our missions align in an incredible way almost because we want to support especially first-time authors who want to get their stories out there, but they lack something, whether it's a community, it's a support, it's something is missing.
Mm-hmm.
And NaNoWriMo, thank God, usually fills that space and gives people hope. Is it too cliche to say that? No, I don't think so. No. So yeah, thank you for emphasizing that. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any follow-up questions, ladies? No,
Not here.
Not here. Yeah, me neither. So, listen, Shonda, if I could, I would be chatting to you until December. Well, you are amazing. But we do have a writing sprint to get to. So I want to thank you for joining us today. Please stay in our ecosystem. Everybody who's watching, Shonda's socials will be linked in the description down below. Her bio is linked as well. Please connect with her, chat with her, follow her on social media, all of that stuff. Shonda, thank you so much again. Please stay in touch. We love you.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that was wonderful. Oh, whose phone is ringing? Emily?
Emily.
This is why you need to put it on set. No, I'm just kidding. We're not in school. Come on, no one's going to chastise you. Oh my God. Well, that was wonderful, wasn't it?
I enjoyed that.
I really, really enjoyed that. I really cannot express my gratitude enough for all these people that come on these live streams and just chat with us, because it's so amazing to see that, NaNoWriMo is a real thing. They really do help writers get started, So, okay. Now that the interview is done, let's get some work done. We were chilling yesterday. It was Halloween. Yep. It was a holiday special. So I let you off easy, but not today. So I'm watching the clock, and let's do 15-minute writing sprint. But before we do that, Emily, what are you working on today? Is it the third book, or you have something else on your mind today?
No. So I'm setting aside my book 3 for right now, and for NaNoWriMo specifically, I
Mhm.
am working on drafting the first novel in a new series. So in the high fantasy series.
In the high fantasy. All right, Mackenzie, what are you working on?
I'm working on chapter 18 in 17.
Woo.
17 or
Ooh.
18 of the artifact hunter. I spent a good amount of time, like I sat down and I like was handwriting what happens in this chapter, and I was just like,
Nice.
I couldn't make my fast enough, and I'm like, okay, now time to actually type stuff. So
Yeah, that is amazing. The ideas are flowing. Okay, let's just dive right into it. 15 minutes. I'm watching the clock. Let's go.
3, 2, 1.
2 more minutes, y'all. We're almost done. First round of NaNoWriMo writing sprints is almost done. All right, y'all. Hands up. Hands up. Oh, that was difficult. Jesus.
Ay, ay, ay.
Ay, ay, ay. I'm not gonna lie. That was hard. Who wants to go
I don't
first?
feel great. I don't feel great about this one. I managed to get 311 words down. It's not shabby.
Good, good. It's not too bad. All right, so you want to go first, Emily? So that Mackenzie can reconcile herself with what you wrote in the meantime.
Sure.
Go ahead.
For the first time in months, they weren't burning bodies. Though the acrid smell of smoke and burnt flesh still thickened the air, it had started to fade like the dying screams of the unfortunate souls who had dared to cross her sister. Sade had long learned to tune them out, letting them blend to a white noise she'd grown so used to that the sudden silence was deafening. Metal grated on stone as she turned on her thin cot and dug a rusted bolt into the wall. She repeated the process until her fingers bled and a crude-looking tally crowded up against its counterparts. 547 days. In the time she'd been imprisoned, nearly 6 seasons had passed. She threw the bolt to the ground and sucked on a raw finger, wondering as she did every time she marked the days if the effort was really worth it. By now it had become habit, part of her feeble attempt to keep from going mad within these walls. Wake as the first rays of sunlight slit the iron bars of the small window beside her cot. Mark the day. Wash the blood from her hands in the tepid water of the basin. Walk the confines of her cell until her bare feet ached from the roughened stone. Read until the words blurred on the page and the sun dipped beneath the sea. Sleep and repeat.
Oof, that was heavy. I'm depressed.
Oh my god. It's giving a Tale of Two Cities.
Yes, exactly. Very much so. Yeah. Oh my god, you're so right, Mackenzie. Absolutely. Yes, it's yeah. Ooh.
I loved it, Emily. Honestly, I could see the whole thing, and it reminded me of A Tale of Two Cities, which is just a book that I adore. So I don't have much else to say to that other than well written.
Have you been to
Thank
prison,
you.
or did you introduce someone who?
No, I haven't.
Girl, that was really amazing. No, absolutely. Very Dickensian. Yeah, is she in the 19th century now?
So it's a made-up world.
Oh, right. This isn't Adelaide. Right. I forgot. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah,
I
yeah.
thought it was
No.
Adelaide in prison.
It's the high fantasy, not the historical fantasy.
Right. Yeah.
Easily
My bad. Sorry. Yeah. I mixed it up because I was like, because like I read your first book, so I'm like feeling for her now, and I thought this was Adelaide, sort of like with Charles
Oh,
Dickens
no.
hanging out in a prison. Oh, Jesus.
That would
No,
be an
no.
interesting twist of events, though.
Yeah.
Totally.
See, I'm giving you ideas now, for sure. All right, Mackenzie.
Okay, so for
Go ahead.
context, I almost called her Adelaide. Odessa, time traveling queens. Odessa is trying to reconcile with the fact that she is now in the present, and she has spent the last 6 weeks in the past. But some version of her has been, because time is not linear, has been living in New York this whole time in the present, living her life. And she's like, all right, trying to catch up. Okay, so here's what we've got. It was a steamy summer morning in New York, like any other. I trudged my way up the steps of the museum entrance, apparently like some version of me had done for the last 6 weeks. But for Adventure Odessa, this was the first normal morning in over a month. Well, as close to it as I could get. Something about waking up in my own bed was both comforting and eerie. There were a few subtle changes to the items in my room, leaving evidence that time had proceeded without me rather than freezing in a moment. I felt as though I had missed out on a hot girl summer. There were a few Polaroids from Central Park on my desk alongside tickets to a Harry Styles show that I was unbelievably disappointed to have missed, and photo evidence of the outing in my phone and on Instagram. Unbelievable. I felt like I was living someone else's life. I was one of the first to arrive that morning as I greeted security before heading downstairs. I desperately needed a peaceful moment to myself to attempt to catch up on the events of the last 6 weeks in the present before the deluge of meetings and preparations for the member preview tomorrow night. I started scouring my inbox, reading email threads, and reviewing daily news digests. The exhibit publicity had ramped up over the summer, but the general consensus had remained the same. People are pissed that the museum has the sculpture at all, let alone it being the centerpiece of the exhibition. In all of the press and opinions, quotes from the Haitian government, vague comments from museum staff, from the Atlantic to the Times, something still seemed very much missing. Why had no one asked any Taino people, the living ancestors, their thoughts on all of this?
Ooh.
Ooh. Very immersive as well.
I still, every time, I love Odessa's voice.
Yeah.
And it still like comes through very well. And I like obviously time travel is like my thing too, that I really enjoy. So I like the concept that because everyone does time travel a little bit differently, but I like that you sort of have like time still going on and existing even when she's in the past, which I think is really fun. And I like sort of the little mementos of like what she kind of missed when she was gone, but kind of didn't at the same time. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I think that concept is really interesting because any time travel stories that I've ever read, it was always about, they traveled back and the time in their timeline sort of stood still. So the fact that she wasn't there, but she was, is just really interesting, and it creates an interesting conflict because it's almost like she needs to become the person that, or ease herself into the person that was there the whole time, but she is not that person anymore. It's almost like a dichotomy, like, a little bit schizophrenic, but like in a good way, like it creates an interesting dynamic, it reminds me of that show. Oh God, what it's called, the Paul Rudd show, where he cloned himself. Like there were 2 versions of him. It's on Netflix. Have you watched it? No.
Oh my God, yeah. It's been like, oh my gosh, that's like over a year. What was that show called?
What was that show called? I'm completely blanking on that, but
I know exactly which one you're talking about.
There were 2 versions of him. One that was like cheerful and normal, like, oh, life is great, and then the downer, the Debbie Downer, and sort of he had to find a way to, like, that's what it reminds me of, and it's really good writing. So yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get through my stuff. 350 words as well, so not too bad. This is actually chapter 9 of the short story fantasy that I've been writing for the past 2 weeks, I would say. It was supposed to be like a one-time writing gig, but like I got into it. I'm not gonna lie, I can see why y'all writing fantasy. Like, it's a lot of fun. You can bend rules. It's a lot of fun. All right. Captain Kinsley didn't know what he was looking for. Not at first, anyway. He imagined an underwater kingdom where sharks were the navigators and people were the followers. As the sea would have it, it was more complicated than that. Maybe the 12 seas were too vast to rule. Maybe they already had a ruler and wouldn't need another. Because Kinsley realized that being a king was not a job that could be inherited here as it was on land. Whether it was a person or an item meant to aid him, the sea would reveal it in due time. He lost his compass years ago. Well, more like threw it away. His first mate thought he'd gone insane for what is a captain without a sense of direction. The dirt behind his fingernails hardened the more he gripped the rudder to suppress the growing doubt. The steady motion of the lioness rocked them from side to side as if the ship was summoning a peaceful slumber upon him, lulling him to obedience, luring him to a trap. Everything ceased: his ship, his crew, his life. Maybe he could return home, abandon the search, become a monk. But it was impossible. It must have been the seasickness crawling on his brain, turning it to mush. Bonnie was usually the one on the receiving end of these endless ponderings, spurring from loneliness, but she never complained. Loneliness was the last remaining proof that there was a living being behind the mask of stoic suffering perpetuated by the self-imposed search mission. Maybe that's why he despised death so much, because it took senselessly and gave nothing back. And he despised people who left this world out of their own volition even more, when they weren't forced to pick, but simply chose themselves over the people who loved them. And so a collision occurred in Captain Kinsley, where opposites he couldn't reconcile manifested in that one person that death took from him, the one he'd become addicted to, and the one that he shut down for. Some laws of nature could be broken, and if the burden to break them rested on his shoulders, so be it. There we go.
Nice. I love that last line. Like,
Yeah.
how convenient that you ended on that.
I know, but it was very natural, I promise you. So, all right. 50 minutes into the live stream. How are we feeling? Good? I think we should feel good about ourselves. Listen.
I think so. I'm feeling inspired to continue writing after this.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what these live streams are supposed to give you, like the inspiration and sort of the taste for more. So we should be very proud of ourselves. It's the first day of NaNoWriMo and we already got some work done. So this is what we're going to do. We are going to take a break because we've been writing for 15 minutes. So we're gonna go get some food, maybe some drinks, and then we'll get back to writing. And in the meantime, all of you watching us, please follow us on social media. Please join us next week for another live stream. We'll do writing sprints and we'll welcome another wonderful guest. And until then, we will see you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.